My name is Alvin Brown. I'm a tax attorney with the law firm of Alvin Brown and Associates. Today I'm going to talk to you about something that's very important. It's criminal tax examinations, tax fraud, and how people get into trouble and how we help them stay out of trouble and resolve some of those issues and deal with the IRS and criminal investigations and other matters. In general, of course, everybody should know that you need to file tax returns, and presently not filing a tax return is a criminal misdemeanor. People go to jail. You go to jail for 5 years for not filing tax returns. Curiously, the Obama administration is proposing to convert non-filing of tax returns into a felony, and that would mean more jail time, more expense. In addition to that, they're considering not filing, even innocently, for several years to be a misdemeanor. So it's critically important to make sure your tax returns are filed. In addition to that, if you don't file a tax return, you're going to get a non-filing penalty, civil penalty of 25% and an underpayment penalty of 20%. So you always should file returns. I've had cases where returns weren't filed, there were investigations. I've never had a situation where there's been a criminal charge by the IRS when somebody voluntarily files their tax returns. That is, on the issue of non-filing, people file voluntarily, and the resulting issues never really end up in a criminal investigation. So the first thing I do with clients who haven't filed is say file. And for the obvious reasons, we want to make sure that they don't get charged with willfully not filing. And of course, for tax returns that are filed, the return should be accurate. A lot of IRS fraud exams and criminal examinations where people make false statements on return. It's a felony to file a false statement on return. A tax return is an affidavit. Everybody should file a tax return as accurately and as they can, and of course in good faith. If you don't have information, you should disclose that information on the return and make it clear to the IRS that you don't have the data, you're filing an estimate, but the return should be filed even if you don't have all the data that you want. And one of the ways to get data for filing tax returns is to get a transcript. We always order transcripts of our clients to make sure that when they file returns, the returns that are filed match up with the data that the IRS has in the IRS transcript. Now, with regard to playing defense, we get a lot of cases where criminal examinations have already begun. You have a problem. Well, let me start here. The IRS has a very large burden of proof. They have to prove tax fraud beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a huge burden of proof that they have. It's the same standard in murder. I mean, they have to prove willful intent to evade taxes beyond a reasonable doubt. That means zero doubt. So all we do in these cases is throw doubt at them. We give them facts that negate doubt. The burden of proof for civil fraud. The civil fraud, there's a 75% penalty for civil fraud. You don't go to jail, but that 75% penalty on top of your taxes is a huge bite, and they have to prove civil fraud by clear and convincing evidence. It's also a very high burden of proof. Well, our defenses to civil fraud or criminal fraud is just to negate the willfulness element, and we can argue that there have been distractions in somebody's life, there's an illness, there's a problem. Anything that negates willfulness, even if a person is negligent. Negligence is not fraud. You can be sloppy, you can be a terrible bookkeeper, the way the courts look at fraud is through circumstantial evidence. In other words, the key element, the key term in tax fraud is the word willfulness. There has to be a willful act, that you knew that you were going to evade taxes. You can understate your income, and that can be caused by negligence or stupidity. This doesn't necessarily have to be willful. There's an awful lot of case law on the term willfulness, and what the courts do is they look at a lot of circumstances. They call it the badges of fraud. There might be 10 or 12 things that they'll look at. Did a person hide income? Did a person try and distort their expenses by creating expenses that didn't exist? Did they cooperate with the IRS? They look at a number of factors. They call them the badges of fraud, and they decide overall if that person is guilty of either civil or criminal fraud. In any event, it's very, very important in any kind of a fraud case or any investigation where you think fraud might be an issue is to be represented by a competent attorney. The important thing to know is that you don't want to self-incriminate yourself on any issue that even conceivably could be viewed as a willful intent to evade. So a lot of times people don't know what they're saying. They could say something by mistake. And you also don't want to put yourself in a position where the IRS can distort your words. So somebody says, I did this, and the IRS says, well, that's, they'll twist it, or they can, it's a one-on-one conversation. You have no defense. There's no witness to what you said. So very often the IRS will try to take advantage of people who are not represented and get them to self-admit on something. And of course, they're just hurting yourself. So, and also there's too much at risk. You just don't want to take the chance that you're going to say something that's inadvertently wrong. And the IRS is very, clever. They'll ask you, 5 successive questions in a row, and you're thinking of the first answer, and they're on the 5th question, and they can be very intimidating. So I think it's really necessary in these cases to be represented by a competent attorney, and let the attorney speak for you and represent you on any issue. Also, be alert to issues that could be erroneously interpreted by the IRS to be criminal. And those things you should also get in touch with a tax attorney to make sure that you have competent representation, just to make sure it doesn't get ugly. Going to jail is, needless to say, it's a horrible thing, and it's very important to protect your safety and protect your family by making sure that you have competent representation in any issue that might be considered criminal. If you have any questions on any case where there is an audit, or if you're concerned about an examination, you can call me and I'll talk to you directly. My name is Alvin Brown. I can be reached at 888-712-7690. My extension is 106. My email address is ab@irstaxattorney.com. That's ab@irstaxattorney.com. Thanks for listening to me, and let me know if you have any questions about this short presentation. Thank you.